I went to Europe to do my spaghetti western, and before I left, I'd done a series of commercials for Nestle's Quick, in which I played a spoof on James Bond, Captain Quick.
For over 50 years, Bat fans have whispered about a legendary band scene from the 1966 Batman series. The myth was built in comic book shops, on late-night radio shows, and in decades of forum posts. A scene so shocking, so out of place, that the network had to lock it away forever. But the truth isn't that simple. It's a tangled web of last-minute script changes, quiet syndication cuts, nervous network censors, and a legal labyrinth that kept not just one, but several moments hidden from the public eye, until now. In this video, we're going to pull back the cowl on one of classic television's most enduring legends. We'll dig into the real stories of cut footage, expose the pressures of 1960s broadcast standards, and finally see the moments that were, for decades, lost to time. For as long as the 1966 Batman series has been a pop culture staple, a folklore of the unseen has run right alongside it. If you're a dedicated fan, you've heard some version of the story that's somewhere in a vault. There's a scene or maybe a whole episode that just went too far. The specifics change depending on who's telling the story, like a game of telephone, played across generations of fans. One of the most popular legends claims the scene involved unprecedented violence. In a show famous for its bloodless POW and BAM fight scenes, this lost scene was supposedly different. It was gritty. It was real. Some said it showed a villain actually getting the better of Batman in a brutal way. The show's heroic tone would never allow. Others whispered it was the other way around, that Adam West's Batman, in a flash of fury, delivered a beating so severe the censors recoiled in horror. The idea was that it shattered the campy illusion, revealing a darkness that was totally off limits for a family show. Another version of the myth centers on politics. The 60s were a turbulent time, and TV was under a microscope. This theory suggests a scene got the axe because it was too politically charged. Maybe a villain's monologue hit too close to a real-world issue, or a joke was seen as a jab at something sensitive like the Vietnam War or the Civil Rights Movement. In this telling, the network, terrified of controversy, snipped the scene before it could ever cause a problem. Then you have the more scandalous rumors. Given the show's campy vibe and the close partnership of Batman and Robin, there were whispers about their relationship. One of the nastier myths suggests the scene was cut for being too suggestive, feeding into a homophobic panic that producers were desperate to avoid. As we'll find out, these rumors were potent enough that they actually led to real, documented script changes to deliberately play up Batman's interest in his female guest stars. This is the perfect breeding ground for a lost media legend. Lost media, if you're not familiar, is any film, TV episode, or song that's believed to exist but is unavailable to the public. The hunt for it has become a full-blown internet obsession. A community of digital detectives piecing together clues from old TV guides, production notes, and fuzzy memories. And the 1966 Batman series was a prime candidate. For decades, the show was stuck in legal limbo, making it impossible to own on home video. It aired in syndication, but often with scenes cut to make room for more commercials. You couldn't just pop in a DVD to check if you remembered a scene correctly. This created a void, and legends grew to fill it. A scene you remembered from childhood but couldn't find in reruns could easily become a banned scene in your mind. Fan communities fueled it. On message boards, people would pool their memories, creating a consensus around footage that may or may not have ever existed. Was there a scene where the Riddler unmasked Robin? A photo exists, sparking theories of a rewritten or unaired take. Fan channels today point to certain storylines, like a plot involving the villain Bookworm, and claim a scripted ending was too violent and had to be changed. These are the whispers. This is the legend. But as we peel back the layers, we find the real story isn't about one shocking, forbidden scene. It's about 1,000 tiny cuts, a complex web of business deals, and the immense pressure of making TV in the 1960s. And frankly, the truth is way more fascinating than the myth. To understand why any footage from Batman would get cut, you have to go back in time, not to the Gotham City of the show, but to the very real world of American television in the mid-1960s. This wasn't our on-demand streaming universe. It was a world dominated by three networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC. They were the gatekeepers of culture, and they were extremely cautious when producer William Dozier set out to create Batman. He wasn't aiming for the dark vigilante we know today. He got the idea after seeing the old 1943 Batman serials at a party at the Playboy Mansion, where the audience howled with laughter at the pulpy adventure. Dozier saw his opening. He'd make a show that worked on two levels. For kids, it was a straight-up superhero adventure. For adults, it was a pop-art comedy, a satire of the very thing it was celebrating. This was the birth of camp. Every Dutch angle, camera tilt, every straight-faced line from Adam West, and of course, every BIFF, POW, and ZAP, was designed to serve this dual purpose. Those fight graphics weren't just for style. They were a clever way to avoid showing actual violence, making the brawls feel more like pop art choreography. The show was an instant smash hit. In 1966, Batman was right up there with the Beatles and James Bond. But popularity brings scrutiny. And in 1960s TV, the final say on everything belonged to the network's censorship department, officially known as Broadcast Standards and Practices, or BS&P. This was ABC's firewall. Their entire job was to read every script and watch every cut to flag anything that might cause trouble. They weren't worried about art. They were worried about risk lawsuits, angry advertisers, and letters from concerned parents. For a show like Batman, BS&P memos covered a lot of ground. Violence was a big one. Was a weapon too realistic? Was a villain's threat too scary? Any hint of genuine peril, especially for Robin, would get flagged. They were also obsessed with social modeling. A core rule was to not disillusion the youth. Heroes had to be perfect. Batman could never be truly cruel, break the law in a major way, or undermine authority figures like the police. This is key to understanding why a certain scene with Commissioner Gordon was later cut. The Cold War and Vietnam War also cast a long shadow. Networks were terrified of being seen as unpatriotic, so scripts were scrubbed of anything that felt like a direct political statement. And of course, there was sex. Censors hated innuendo, and this became a sore spot for Batman. As mentioned, whispers about the show's campy tone and the dynamic duo's relationship made the network very nervous. In response, ABC executives actually mandated that scripts include more scenes of Batman showing interest in women. A line where Batman describes Robin's crush on a villainess as the first oncoming thrusts of manhood was a direct, if clumsy, result of this top-down order to kill any perceived subtext. This was the world Batman was born into, a hotbed of creative energy boxed in by corporate control. Every script was a negotiation. Every scene was a potential fight. This constant battle between art and censorship is the real story behind the legend of the banned scene. The search for the banned Batman scene isn't a straight line. It's a maze of legal battles, syndication edits, and behind-the-scenes drama. First off, for nearly 40 years, the entire Batman series was essentially lost media. While it aired in reruns, it was never officially released on VHS, Laserdisc, or DVD. Why? Because of a legal mess, so complicated, it felt like a scheme cooked up by the Riddler. The show was produced by William Dozier's Greenway Productions and distributed by 20th Century Fox. But the characters Batman, Robin, Joker were owned by DC Comics, which was eventually bought by Warner Brothers. So right there, you have three companies with a claim. But wait, it gets worse. George Barris, who built the iconic Batmobile, held rights to the car's design. To release the show, you'd need his approval too. For decades, Fox controlled the episode prints, but Warner Brothers controlled the characters. Neither could release the show without the other, and they couldn't agree on how to split the money. This legal stalemate is the main reason the show was locked away for so long. It wasn't banned. It was just too messy to touch. This long absence allowed the myths of lost scenes to grow wild. And the legal chaos directly led to cut footage. Remember the Batclim window cameos. As Batman and Robin scaled a wall, a celebrity like Jerry Lewis or Sammy Davis Jr. would pop out of a window. The problem was, their contracts were from the 60s. They covered TV broadcast, but not future formats like DVDs. To release the full series, lawyers would have had to track down every single guest star, or their estate, and negotiate a new deal. It was a logistical and financial nightmare. For a long time, it seemed more likely that if the show ever came out, these famous cameos would just be cut entirely. Now let's move from the courtroom to the cutting room. Long before the legal battles, scenes were being snipped for a much simpler reason: time. As the years went on, networks sold more ad time, which meant less time for the actual show. When Batman was sold into syndication for reruns, it was often trimmed down. A few seconds here, a minute there, all to cram in more commercials. Batfights were an easy target. It was simple to trim a few punches without messing up the plot. A fan once documented that a single sentence from Commissioner Gordon was cut just to save 3 seconds. Over time, these tiny cuts added up, creating different, incomplete versions of the episodes across the country. This brings us to the most concrete proof of lost and found footage. For years, fans remembered moments that weren't in the versions airing on TV land. One of the biggest examples is from the episode That Darn Catwoman. In the full version, Batman decides he has to take Commissioner Gordon to the Batcave. To protect his identity, he uses Batgas to knock the Commissioner out before telling Robin and Alfred to carry him to the car. In many syndicated versions, this scene was gone. The edit is jarring. 1 second they're talking about going to the Batcave, the next they're there. When channels like MeTV began airing restored versions, it was a revelation. Scenes fans thought they'd imagined were suddenly there. These weren't banned scenes, in the dramatic sense. They were casualties of the syndication market, victims of the simple need to sell more soap. This deep dive into TV history is exactly what we love to do. We believe every show has a story behind the story, and the investigation is often as exciting as the reveal. If you're enjoying this trip into Gotham's lost archives, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. It's the best way to support the channel and make sure you don't miss our next investigation. Now, let's get to the big reveal. So, after navigating the maze of legends, censors, and legal nightmares, what did we find? While there's no single, explosive band scene, there are several real pieces of footage that were cut for decades and have only recently resurfaced. These are the truths at the heart of the myth. Let's unmask them. This is probably the most famous lost scene. It's from the Catwoman two-parter, That Darn Catwoman. Batman needs to interrogate one of Catwoman's goons in the Batcave, with Gordon present as a witness. The problem, the Batcave's location is top secret. In the syndicated version, there's an awkward cut, but in the original broadcast, we see the full, slightly weird solution. Batman pulls out a can of bat sleep, calmly sprays it in Commissioner Gordon's face, and knocks him out cold. He then tells Alfred and Robin to haul the unconscious Commissioner to the Batmobile. You can see why this got cut. First, it saves time, but more importantly, look at the optics. Our hero is drugging the police commissioner without his consent. Even in this campy world, it's a little jarring and pushes the boundaries of showing respect for authority. For years, fans who saw it on the original run remembered the gassing of Commissioner Gordon and wondered where it went. Its restoration was proof they weren't crazy. Another type of cut involved trimming moments of real danger, especially for the boy wonder. The network was touchy about making things too scary for kids. A great example is a fight scene on a water tower. In the shortened version, it's a standard bat, but in the restored print, there's an extra shot where Robin is knocked off balance and is left desperately hanging from the side of the tower, high above the ground. It's a tiny moment, but it adds a real jolt of suspense. Removing these flashes of danger helped keep the show feeling light and safe. It wasn't just action that got cut. In one episode, pop singer Leslie Gore guest starred as one of Catwoman's minions and performed 2 songs. For decades, her second song, Maybe Now, was cut from all broadcasts to save time. Then there's the stuff that never even made it to film. There's a persistent piece of production lore about the 2-part episode with the villain Bookworm. The story goes that the original scripted climax was way more violent. The Bookworm's henchman was supposed to gun down the entire gang with a rifle, believing them to be dead. Batman and Robin would turn their backs, only for the dead villain's shot, with blanks to rise and ambush them. This idea was rejected internally, reportedly because the image of villains being riddled with bullets was too gruesome, even if it was fake. So they rewrote it into a standard bat fight. This is a perfect example of self-censorship, where the creators themselves decided an idea went too far for the show's tone. So the reveal is this. The legend of the band scene is a ghost, made from the memory of dozens of smaller, more mundane cuts. The reality is a collection of these moments: a drugged commissioner, a dangling Robin, a lost song, a scrapped shootout, all snipped for reasons of time, tone, and money. The restoration of these scenes does more than just satisfy old curiosities. It actually changes how we see the show. For decades, our memory of Batman was shaped by syndication edits. We were watching a version that had been subtly softened and streamlined for commercials. Seeing the show as it was intended is like looking at a restored painting. The colors are brighter, and the artist's original intent is clearer. Does seeing Batman gas Commissioner Gordon turn him into a dark anti-hero? No, but it adds a layer of ruthless pragmatism we don't usually associate with Adam West's portrayal. That tiny shot of Robin in danger injects real suspense into a show often seen as having no stakes. These moments don't rewrite the show, but they add texture. Ironically, the legal mess that kept Batman off home video for so long is what cemented its legendary status. Absence made the heart grow fonder. The decades-long wait built a mystique that a readily available show could never have. It turned every rerun into an event and every fan memory into a clue. The legal battle accidentally became the show's greatest marketing tool. The eventual Blu-ray release in 2014, with these scenes restored, was a monumental event. It closed a case that had been open for nearly 50 years. The lost scenes were finally home, no longer just rumors, but an official part of the Batman canon. Their journey from the cutting room floor back into the light is a testament to the show's power and the fans, who refused to let these moments disappear. So, we started out hunting for a single, sensational, band scene from the 1966 Batman TV series. What we found was something far more complex. The truth wasn't one moment of forbidden content, but a death by 1,000 cuts made by nervous censors, bickering lawyers, and the ticking clock of commercial television. The lost scenes of Batman were never really banned, they were just misplaced, trimmed, and tangled up in the business of television. From Commissioner Gordon's Batgas nap to the bookworm's rewritten ending, these moments give us a fascinating look at the pressures that shaped an icon. The legend is dramatic, but the truth is infinitely more interesting. It's a story about how our favorite media is made, how it's preserved, and how even after 50 years, we can still see it in a whole new light. What do you think? Do these restored scenes change how you view the classic series? And what other TV legends or lost media mysteries should we investigate next? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.